We'll see how that goes. Let's see. Live here. Let me get my audio checked real quick, and then we'll get started. Live here. Dope. All right. So, welcome back. We took a break last week for everybody kind of wondering if we were like missing a week or not, right? We took a break or I took a break. You guys were just doing whatever you were doing. But took a break from the stream from last week, just so I can kind of catch up with some like life stuff and some stuff after Lightbox. I do have a shit ton of stuff to talk about today. Some fun, interesting things that I kind of learned during the event, but we'll get to that a little bit later. So before we get into November's topic, let's wrap up October's topic, right? So this is kind of where I got to, right? For my illustration. Not the best I've ever seen. Like, it is something where, for me, this was a fun challenge, right? I think when I started this, I think I'd said it before, where I'd never really done creatures before. This is actually my first, I guess, I don't want to say my first creature, but the first, I guess, creature I had done since being a student, right? Because I took a creature design class in 2014. Well, they forced me to take a creature design. That was just part of the thing, which was very good, by the way. I did like it. I had Jared Morant, so he's a great teacher. But anyway, so I hadn't really done creatures since like 2014. So that's been 10. Oh shit, that's been 10 years, bro. That's crazy. But it's been 10 years since I've actually done a creature before, and I was like, let's try again, see what happens, and then on top of that, I don't really do characters that much. Not that this is like super character or anything. This is a dude with armor. His face isn't even painted, I was like, oh, what if it was like Halloween just passed. I was like, oh, what if it was like one of those like headless horseman type dudes, But anyway, so this is where it got to, right? I think personally for me, I'd probably be okay sending this off, like if I was like working with a client or something like that, Is it the best I've ever seen? Definitely not, But I think that's kind of where I was trying to go with this, right? I think a lot of this really was, just getting out of my comfort zone, doing something that I hadn't really done before, using studies to kind of help me get there, as well as just relying on my fundamental process to like, figure all that out, right? Because at the end of the day, painting all of these things, even though I don't really put them together like this, I've painted things like armor, right? Like, metal plating and various things like that. Generally speaking, is pretty universal, right? And then, various parts of the creature and stuff, worked out pretty well, right? So I think with more practice, obviously, this is something that I'd want to get better at, but overall, like I'm not too sad about where it came out, you know what I mean? It's like it's a good start. So I just kind of want to show you where it came from. So this is the sketch we did that the first session. If you haven't seen it before, go check it out. There's 4 episodes, just starting from this rough sketch. This was just me kind of like chatting and hanging out, trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and then from there we did a block out, right? Mostly just trying to get the shapes in order, trying to get like the main idea flowing, get the vibe and the mood and tone set up correctly. After that, we did a block out of color and a little bit of lighting, right? Starting to really understand what's happening there. Started applying materials, right? Started getting that rendering in place. There's some things that were kind of missing here and there. And then ultimately leading to, what we have today. So, hopefully you think it's cool. If you haven't seen it yet, definitely go check it out. It was definitely fun to kind of do. And I definitely want to do more. I think that was the kind of thing about this. I don't want to say I cornered myself into doing something that I wouldn't normally do, but I decided to do it for the live stream. So I was like, you know what? Let's see what happens. And I think the thing about this, the thing I liked about doing these types of assignments, especially like in a setting like this where there's people watching and there's like I guess there's an expectation of performance, right? Is because now, I'm one kind of creature better than I was before, essentially. This actually took me, I would say, like 3 or 4 times longer than usual. Like a painting of like similar quality, let's say for like architecture or like any of the other paintings, to be completely honest. It was interesting because like this painting, I worked on I don't want to say almost every day, but I would work on a little bit at least 6 days a week, right? I'd work on like maybe an hour or two, you know, on like some of my work days, and the weekends I would work like 3 or 4 hours on it, really just trying to figure things out. And it took a while. It was a lot of like kind of just messing around with things, you know, just seeing like, does this work? And then I would go do a study of something else, and then I go like look up references for different artists and stuff like that, and just see how they did things, you know. And ultimately, hopefully, it turned out at least halfway decent, you know. But this is kind of where it ended up, and I'm actually excited to do more. So, but with that in mind, this was October, right? We're wrapping that up. We're getting into November. So the Livestream Plus, they did vote. They casted their vote, and we have our topic. So we're going to be doing designing an interior, right? So this is just going to be an interior based off of kind of what I want to do, right? For anybody that wants to follow along, you can pick any interior that you'd like. You can do, you know, sci-fi, fantasy, modern day, whatever it is. All of these concepts will apply. I'm going to be using 3D for the first two streams here, right? So stream 1 and 2. And then we'll get into kind of like a 2D output, right? Just like usual, we're going to start off with a decently basic, I guess, model pass just to kind of get us started, try to understand some of the pieces and, you know, have the freedom to kind of move things around easily. And then understanding like how do we get the best shot to best describe this location, right? So stream 1 and stream 2, design block out, and then design block out 2, right? So the reason we have that twice is because I want to focus on the two different ideas when it comes to, you know, designing and blocking out. The first week today is going to be about, you know, blocking out a interior as a whole, right? The entire room is going to be our focus, and understanding kind of like what goes into that, and you know what are things that we should think about, right? Not really focusing on any individual thing, right? Stream 2 is going to be the opposite of that, right? We're gonna hone into at least the main ideas of the space, whatever thing is going to be the kind of focal point, the attention grabber, the thing that's unique about the space. That's what we're going to focus on for stream 2, right? So more of a macro for stream 1, more of a micro for stream 2, right? And then stream 3, lighting and mood, understanding how to light the space and paint it. We're going to do that mostly in 2D. There might be some 3D like lights here and there just to kind of get things started. But overall, that's going to be a 2D Photoshop application, right? And then stream 4, material rendering. And then there's a stream 5. So for everybody that's, you know, that kind of like does, you know, watches this normally, right? You usually see that there is 4 streams, right? The 5th stream is always the first stream of the next thing. That's just when we kind of talk about the painting and, you know, kind of break things down, right? Exactly what I just did here. So because December's kind of weird. November also has a kind of like has the Thanksgiving week type of thing, right? We're gonna be taking some breaks in between, as well as not doing the second half of December because there's, you know, Thanksgiving, and then there's like Christmas break and all these things. The last thing I want to be doing as well is just kind of working. You know what I mean? So just take it easy, hang out with family, do your thing. But this November stream is going to kind of encompass all of November, or the rest of November here, and then the first 2 weeks of December. So that's going to give us our 4/5 weeks, right? So we're ending on December 11th for the year, right? And that last week is just going to be kind of meeting up, kind of seeing where that painting gets to, as well as just talking, you know what I mean? Just chatting, hanging out, you know, just keeping it chill, essentially, right? So that's why this schedule is kind of weird. That's why it looks a little bit different this time compared to normal. I'll post this in the Discord once we're done with today's stream, and then yeah. Oh, and then real quick, there's a stream between stream 3 and 4 here. There's an extra week, so there's a gap right there, right? So from this, oopsies, from right there, there's a 1 week break in between there. So just so you guys know, that's Thanksgiving week. So cool. With that in mind, let's get started. Let's see here. Boom. Sorry, I have some messages and things. Let me clear that. But it's gonna bother the hell out of me. Quit. There it is. All right. I guess I'll leave that up and we'll talk about that in a second. So, what I want to do today, right? I'm going to make an interior. I was thinking about it's funny because I actually had sushi the other day. And that's actually when I was thinking about it. So what I want to make is a kind of like sci-fi interior, right? Or just a futuristic sushi restaurant where, just keeping it fun, keeping it lighthearted. And I'm going to kind of show you like some of the things that I think about as I'm designing an interior and kind of show how freeing an interior can actually be. I think a lot of times when people design interiors, there's this very, it can be very intimidating sometimes. For one, there's a lot of stuff in there, right? You can't really get away with a lot of the, it's far away type of mentality, right? Like when you do a mountain that's like, 50, 60 miles away, you just kind of get some basic shapes and you're probably going to be okay. Interiors, you get away with that a lot less because things really can't be that far away, right? So we're going to kind of cover just kind of the main ideas of what I think about and try to create a space that hopefully looks interesting by the end of it, right? And if you're following along, for those that want feedback, right, on your paintings, right, we do the live stream plus. For anybody that doesn't know, it's going to be a weekly feedback stream, usually the day before today's stream. So we had one like yesterday around the same time. It's an hour later, but generally speaking about the same time. And we just do feedback on whatever you submit. So submit meaning like part of the assignment, not just like random assignments, right? But yeah, so let's get into it. I have some reference here that I kind of gathered. It's nothing crazy. What I will say about this month, right? We've covered form language at least 3 or 4 times this past year, right? So I don't really want to break into reference boards too much. Obviously, I do have references that I'm looking at, and there's a way I organize it. I don't really want to focus too much on that aspect, right? I want to focus on the whole room rather than the individual props. So if you are struggling with form language and you're trying to like figure that out a bit more, right? I do have other videos on that. Go check out the stuff for, I believe it was, here, I'll just pull up my demos real quick. The stuff for September, the stuff for July, and then the stuff for like January, right? All those I had like form languages and things for. So definitely, look into those. You'll see it, if you're truly looking for it. And then yeah. But for this stream, right, I want to focus more on the understanding of a room itself rather than the individual props in the room, right? I will be designing things for sure, but I don't want to talk about it as much because there's other aspects that we should be focusing on. So let's see. Live stream reference. All right. So I just gathered some reference, right? It's like 5 photos. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to understand what these spaces are about, right? So I had the idea. I was literally not. I wasn't at an omakase restaurant, right? I don't roll like that. But I was eating. I was like, oh yeah, I'm in a room right now. Let's make something like this, right? And I just wanted to make a high-end version of kind of like the place that I was in, right? So I wasn't at this. These are not places that I was at. But I just wanted to kind of see. I'm just looking for like, how do they lay things out? What do they have, right? And what's the kind of general understanding, right? There's a couple here. Like this one seems like like a semi-normal place, right? Some of these are like, I don't know, like weirdly like dystopian, right? It almost feels like, where are we? You know what I mean? Some of these feel a little more normal. Some of these are, kind of high-end, nice places, right? So I want to kind of start figuring things out. And what I like about these places, right, is that there is a really nice kind of polished finish to like the room itself and like some of the utensils and stuff you interact with. But then you see like, woven baskets. Then you see like very traditional old things, right? Because, it's the culture, it's the way they kind of do things, right? It's the same thing they've been doing for like 100 years, right? And so, the location itself might have some really nice really nice things. And then you see like little sprinkles of culture in there, right? And I want to kind of carry that forward and maintain those ideas and bring that into my designs, right? So let's get into this. Boom. Let's go with this. Let's open Blender and we'll get started. So at this point, I'm just going to be demoing right now. I'm just kind of like getting into the actually making of things. I'll periodically talk about things as we go. But if you guys have the stuff you want to talk about, things you want to say, definitely just call it out. Call it out, comment. I'll try to keep an eye on the chat and stuff. But if you are in the Discord, right, you do kind of have priority because it's like, you know, you're here. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, let's see. So, with that in mind, the first thing that you want to think about, right? Depending on what the location is, right? Because right now, I'm starting from an interior, right? There's a couple different things that you want to think about. When you are working in a production, right? You're tasked with creating interiors, especially as an environment artist, you know, every once in a while, right? And so there's a couple ways you want to go about it. If you have an exterior, right? Assuming we have a building that we're building from, they're like, hey, we have this facade. Can you do the interior so the characters can go in and do their thing, right? That happens all the time. You want to understand that depending on what material you have first is how you want to approach the design. If I don't have an exterior, I won't start with the layout. I'll actually start with whatever the main prop is, right? Because when you're designing interior, the main thing to understand is we're trying to design a space with a solid intention, right? It doesn't have to be one singular prop, right? Like restaurants aren't really one singular thing. It's about the flow of things, right? You know, from the kitchen to the, you know, to the tables, to the door, to all these things, right? It's how they're in relation to each other, but the whole purpose is dining, right? Is to eat something. And so when I design a space, especially if I don't have a exterior to reference, I won't start with the footprint of the restaurant. I'll actually start with the main props and start arranging them in the best way possible, right? Because I'm not really limited to what the building's doing, right? If you do have an exterior, you do kind of have to start from, you know, that idea, right? If you have a cylindrical building, right? Something more like circle, right? You have to lay things out in that way. If you have something more square, more hexagonal, whatever, right? But the whole point being, there are restraints that you have to be aware of as you start. At this point in time, I don't have any of those restraints, so I'm not going to start there. But when you're doing your stuff for work, just kind of know that, right? So, first thing being, I'm going to create this. I'm going to create a shape that just kind of sets up my scale. Right now, if you open Blender for the first time, there's always a cube there, right? If you look at this, go to View, and then, Item. If you look at the dimensions of this cube, right, 2 meters by 2 meters by 2 meters, so that's 6 feet, right? So scale, Shift Z. If you have a cube that's 6 feet, then you have scale of a person that's 6 foot, right? So I just kind of like to make that a little bit thinner. Generally speaking, I would actually have a model in here already that is relevant to the project that I'm on, right? So for example, if I'm working on a project like Blue Eye, right, I'll have Mizu, the model that the team's using or whatever, at scale in my base Blender, right? Because we're on live stream, I don't show that, right? So, you know, we're just using a cube. But, you know, you can find like a base person, you can find like a base mesh or whatever, right? You want to start at the scale that you need to be at, because if you start modeling, you know, your room could be like, you know, the size of like, you know, a dollhouse, right? Like the real space could be just scaled down too small. And then you have to scale things up. Sometimes your transforms are acting kind of weird, you know, so on and so forth. And then what happens is, if you're at the wrong scale, right, your lighting is going to behave differently, right? You know, the system is set up to where it tries to be as realistic as possible, right? Obviously with the constraints of like what you put in the space, meaning like sky domes and floors and reflections and this and that. But it tries to react in a generally speaking normal way. And so if you're scaled down too big or too small, or scaled up too big or down too small, your lighting's gonna be a little bit weird, and you're gonna have to fix that later. So you might as well just start correct now, and hopefully you're, you know, doing something okay. So let's see here. So I have my guy. It's just a stick. You know, we're just keeping it chill, right? So what I want to do is, because it's an omakase restaurant, right? This is a oops. Let me do this desktop. Let me save this out. There it is. Boom. Nope. Never mind. All right. So because this is a omakase restaurant, right? There's a very specific way that you kind of interact with a restaurant like this. There isn't a bunch of tables that are spread out, right? Because the idea is there's an interaction between the chef, whoever's cooking the food or making the food for you, and then you at the bar, right? Generally speaking, that's how it works. There could be places that it's different, but generally speaking, that's how they kind of go about things. So I kind of want to make something that kind of, you know, works for that, right? So I was thinking, you know, let's start with something that is maybe a little more conducive for, you know, I guess a small group of people, right? So what I want to do, not a small group, but maybe like 12 people or something like that, right? But what I saw this photo, right? And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. I liked how they had like three kind of different directions, you know, kind of happening here. There's a guy in the front, and then there's like two people on the sides. And I was kind of thinking, I mean, I'm sure the lady in the back is not doing the things. I'm not sure which it is. It's a photo, right? But looking at this, there's three sides to this bar, right? And I'm assuming each chef can serve their side, right? Generally speaking, it's not just one sushi chef at these places. There can be, but generally speaking, there's a couple, and they're kind of serving their own group, right? Groups of, looks like 4 in this case. So I wanted to do kind of something like that. I was like thinking, oh, what if we kind of like create this this robot experience, right? I was thinking about it, and I was like, okay, well, I want to make a restaurant idea. I don't want to just make a place, right? That sucks, right? So I was thinking, I saw this thing on online. Is that how big it is? Let's see. Hold up. I saw this thing online, and they were saying that surgeons can like remote in to like a robot, and they'll like do like stitches and stuff from like, you know, wherever they're at, right? They'll just do surgery, like basically Bluetooth surgery, right? And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. I don't know if I trust it, but you know, that's neither here nor there. So I want to create this robot that, like, what if you could just like have like the best, you know, sushi chef in the world, you know, just kind of remote in, and he navigates with this robot, and there's like a screen or whatever. I don't know how full of life that is, but I thought it'd be kind of a fun concept to kind of pursue. So that's what we're doing. And then I liked this kind of organization. So it's like this organization here, right? So it's like, oh, what if there's like 3, and there's like kind of like, you know, things happening, and we're creating this kind of environment where we're seeing these kind of 3 robots in this space. And then, you know, we're kind of like enjoying this meal or whatever, right? So that's what I want to do. That's how I'm going to go about it. And yeah, we're going to make something happen. So let's see here. Let's do that, this. If you guys have anything you want to talk about, definitely just feel free to call it out. I do have some Lightbox stuff I want to kind of mention. There's a couple things some fun things that happened, some funny things that happened, and some just things that I'd love to talk about. But before we get there, I'd love to see, like, how you guys been? How was either your Lightbox or how's life, right? I do know there's an election that just happened, so you know there's a sore spot in that topic. So if you don't want to talk about it, definitely you don't have to. But you know, there is that in the air right now. Let's see. Boom. I need to figure out how big this bar is. So right now I'm trying to create this like hexagonal bar, and I want at least 3 people, right? I don't know exactly how I'm gonna lay it out quite yet. That's what I'm trying to figure out right now. Because I was thinking maybe if there's like 4 people on a thing, right? That, generally speaking, this probably sounds okay. So I'm gonna rotate this, rotate 30, no, rotate 90. There it is. Something like that. Rotate 90, rotate 30. That's what it is. Should just put 120, but whatever. It's all good. That looks weird.
I got a question.
What's up, dude?
Stuff.
Yeah.
You can go as specific, like non-specific as you like with this. But I heard, not necessarily like planning on doing it next year for sure, or anything, but just into the future. Is it like super painful to get a Lightbox booth?
I don't know if it's painful, right? I think that's it's definitely, I would definitely consider it hard, right? Because I don't get it every year. There is a so for example, I got it the first year, and the next 2 years there was COVID. So 2019 I got it. 2020, 2021 there was COVID, so they did it online. 2022 I got it again, and then 2023 I didn't actually get it. But what I will say is there is there's an effort on their end to kind of change out the artists, right? So for example, and this is just me guessing, right? There's a group of artists that they'll always say yes to, right? These are like your legendary artists. These are your Nathan Fowkes. These are, people that like you just want them there. If they want to be there, they'll get in, right? That's the kind of idea. Your boy's not part of that group. And so there's that kind of group of core people that you'll always see at these places. And then there's another group that it's kind of like the more, I don't want to say average, but the more kind of just general artists that, occupy the booths and stuff. And it feels like they try to flip that every year, right? Just to kind of get enough different variety in this, because, if it's the same people just applying every year, you just get the same people tabling every year, right? So for example, in 2023, me and I think, as far as I talk, I'm sure it's others too. The 3 or 4 people that I talked to, none of them got it, right? They just, and we had been getting it for like every year since then, right? Every year up till then. And we didn't get 2023, but some new people that I know applied actually got it, right? Which is great. And then 2024 happened. It was actually the reverse. The people that got it that 2023 year did not get it. And then, I'm not saying this is consistent for everybody, right? Obviously, there's a whole committee that decides who gets to table and who gets to like kind of be a part of a thing. So it definitely does change. And then I don't want to say it's painful because you just submit an application. You just talk about who you are, what you do. You show a portfolio. You can show like work samples or whatever. And generally speaking, right, they are looking for people that have some sort of experience, right? Not that it's always the case, but there is a level of, they're looking for like kind of industry professionals to kind of table and stuff like that. I'm not saying that it's impossible for students or, more entry level artists to get it, because it definitely is possible. It's just, I would definitely consider it one of the harder places to kind of get into, if that makes sense. But I would definitely say try, right? It doesn't cost anything to try. All you got to do is send in an application, and then you hear back. I think it's like I think if I remember correctly, I think it's like every February, March, that you do the application, and then you hear back in like April or some shit like that. April, May, June, or something like that. So, but yeah, I definitely say it's worth it. I will say for everybody, like, there is a there's a fee to get in for sure, right? There's, you know, $400, $500 to like get a table. You get the table plus the badge, and they place you wherever they feel relevant. Like for example, my first couple years, I was kind of with the games people because that was a lot of my portfolio, and then they kind of switched me into the weird animation side, which was which was interesting. And then weirdly enough, I was actually with a lot of the Japanese people this year, so I don't know. I had nothing to do with that. You know, there was like 4 Japanese tables in front of me with artists and stuff like that, and then then there was our man. But other than that, yeah, so that was cool. But yeah, so I don't know. Does that help?
Oh, for sure. Good to know. Thanks, man.
Are you looking to apply?
I've been considering it. Honestly, I don't necessarily think it's a good idea. It's just I have some projects I'm trying to turn into print stuff, and it would be like, okay. I thought it couldn't hurt.
Yeah, you know, I will say for everybody, right? Definitely try, right? If you're somebody that's like kind of looking into wanting to do that, right? Because the tabling opportunity, okay, first and for everybody, right? Chances are you're not going to make money doing it. It's not a profitable endeavor, right? Just because it's going to cost you money, assuming you live in LA, which most of you don't. It's going to cost you at least $400 to do it, and then plus the materials and the stuff like the table decorations, the prints or whatever you're trying to sell. You have to buy all that shit ahead of time, right? So your chances are, just day one, you're probably like $1,000 in the hole, and that's if you live in LA, right? If you take a flight of any sort, that easily doubles and triples, right? So chances are you're probably not gonna make money. But understand that these places, they're not for you to make money. I never go to these places, these types of events, with the idea that I'm here to make a profit, because there is so many better ways to make profit. It's dumb how little money we actually make from these types of events, right? You just have to do like one freelance job, and you're like already making way more money than whatever these conventions are going to pay you. Does that make sense? So just kind of know that. But if profit's not the case, then why do it, right? That usually kind of ends up being the question. It's for promotion. It's for you, right? It's for people to get to know you a bit better, for you to be a little bit more in the spotlight. Because what happens is, for one, you're promoted as a person that's there, right? Whether it's on their site, whether it's being there in person and people just walking by, you get noticed to whatever degree, but people see you, right? And in an industry where people need to see you, that is immensely important. I don't recommend going because you're trying to make cash. I recommend going because you're trying to advertise yourself, right? To the students that don't know who you are, right? Because social media is hard as hell to like promote yourself on. And then, you know, just trying to get noticed by anybody is super difficult, right? So doing these types of events, it becomes an investment for your future. Yes, you know, let's say $1,000, right? Because you can't just show up with a blank table. You have to do something. And so $1,000 plus your time to sell whatever it is you're trying to sell, right? Yeah, that doesn't seem like it's worth it, but what if $1,000 could lead to a $100,000 job, which is, you know, it's just a standard concept art job, right? If you were told, hey, give me $1,000 and I will pay you $100,000 a year, that's a no-brainer, right? Fucking, that's crazy. You know what I mean? You'd get that back in a week. You know what I mean? If you did what? Let's say It's 50 an hour, right? $100,000, 50 an hour, 50 times 40. You'd get that. You would double that in literally the first week. 40 hours times 50, right? 50 an hour, $100,000 a year, right? 40 hours a week. That's $2,000 a week, right? And so if I told you, hey, give me $1,000, right, and I'll pay you $100,000, you'd probably do it because that's the easiest investment you could possibly think of. It doesn't. Investments don't work like that, right? But we just don't know if it's gonna pay. You just don't know if it's gonna be if you're gonna get money and things like that. So it's like you just do it to help promote yourself, and potentially things can work out, right? You have to just hope that whatever you're doing is that you're there to kind of promote yourself a bit more. So it does end up being worth it, and this is for any event, right? Most tabling conventions, right? There's always people around that will kind of see you, and they'll kind of, as long as your work is good, right? Obviously, there's a prerequisite of you have to actually be a good artist to kind of to actually be able to do something with that recognition, right? But it is worth it. I will definitely 100% agree to that. So, yeah, I don't know. I guess yeah, just do what you will with that information. Let's see.
Well, that's perfect. That's kind of exactly was my thinking on it. So it's nice to see it kind of validated.
I think
Sorry, go ahead.
No. Go ahead. Finish.
Main feedback from Lightbox was like kind of bittersweet. 'Cause last year and I still have areas I really want to improve on. But this year, with everybody I talked to, it was kind of like, all right, cool. You should be working. Congrats, you're at a working level. Like, you just need to get people to like see your stuff. You need to know more people. Was like the number one thing people kept telling me. So like, go talk to my friend over here, go meet this person, stuff, and that's cool. But then it's also like, oh crap, it's different than like, oh, you need to improve this, and then ostensibly a job will show up. Then it's kind of a different ballgame. It's more luck based. So weird in that sense.
Yeah, it's. I think there. Lightbox is weird, or any convention, right? CTN, DesignerCon, fucking GDC, all of it, right? Every single convention you go to, it gets a little bit weird because for students, right? If you're not quite ready, you'll hear it because they'll be like, okay, cool, you're getting better. Your work's looking like it's pretty good. You need to work on these things, A, B, C, D thing, right? And that's generally speaking kind of what a lot of people hear in their like kind of more first time convention. Obviously not talking about you. But eventually, right, you kind of hit this level of you're probably good enough to work. Your quality bar is most likely high enough, right? And you'll start hearing it, right? Because you'll start hearing, this looks great, man. I don't really have too many things to say. Maybe just fill out your portfolio a bit more with these things because this is what these studios look for, right? You'll start hearing it looks great. You're just missing some things, right? So then you fill that out, and then it's like, oh yeah, you just kind of need to keep applying, and that's what, to me, places like Lightbox is truly about, right? It's you're getting in people's mind because then they see you. They're like, oh shit, you're pretty good. How do you handle A, B, and C thing? You know what I mean? How do you handle, this type of design, this type of workflow? You get to actually talk and interact with these people. And the cool part is you get to see them again. Sorry, my cat's being weird. But you get to see them again at different events, right? If you interact with somebody once, chances are they're going to remember you. They're probably going to see that work and be like, oh yeah, you're that dude from last year, or you're that person that had this thing. Like, you've gotten so much better. Hey, we're looking for artists. We're looking for a junior artist or whatever. That's kind of what you're looking for, right? You're trying to get into people's mind at that point, because promoting yourself on social media, promoting yourself on, various platforms or whatever to kind of get to know people is very hard, right? Especially because you're competing with other professionals that are also posting at the same time. And so chances are your stuff kind of gets drowned out, right? Unless you're really good at social media, which, you know, it is a skill, right? You don't, I guess, you know, you really have to like try and stand out somehow. And face-to-face interactions and these conversations is really what pushes that bar. Because now, let's say you talk to somebody at whatever studio that you wanted to work at, right? You know, whatever place you're trying to go to. You talk to them at Lightbox. They're not hiring right now, but he's like, cool. Yeah, this stuff looks really good. This is exactly what we're kind of looking for. Great, right? And then you get home maybe a month or two later, right? Like, I guess if you get home, it's usually the beginning of November, right? Because that's when Lightbox ends, end of October, beginning of November. And then a couple months later, right, January, December-ish is when they start hiring again for the next year, right? You're still pretty fresh in their mind. And so when you apply to that studio, they're like, hey, I met that person. He's really cool. She's really cool. Let's interview them. That's the difference, right? Because before, you were a nobody. You were somebody that nobody even knew existed. Oh, that work's cool. This guy's work is a little bit closer to what we're looking for, and I know him. I know her, right? That's usually, to be honest, ends up being one of the biggest differences that you see in places like this, right? It does suck that it's like that. I do fully understand that, but just understand that, you know, it's not always a skill game when it comes to finding work and getting hired somewhere. It oftentimes really is like did they just remember to hire you? You know, which sounds crazy. It sounds like that sucks that that's the case, but I mean, at the end of the day, that's the game we play. You know, that's trying to get your name out there. That's why we post on social media. That's why that's why I'm live streaming right now, right? That's why we're doing this, right? It's a lot of like, oh, hey, I saw your live stream, or I saw this thing, you know, and you know how many times I got that, you know, at the convention, you know, I was like, oh, hey, I watch your streams or whatever. And not from like students, like obviously students said that too, for sure. But from like professionals, right? From people that I'm like, why are you watching my stream? You know what I mean? Like, you're not the target audience. You know what I mean? Like, you're like better than I am. I don't understand why you're watching this. He's like, oh yeah, I just caught it. But that's what it is, you know. It's just getting your name out there, doing something, because oftentimes the skill to get in is a lot. I don't want to say lower. It's not as high as you might believe, right? The ability to do junior work really isn't that crazy. You have to be able to draw. You have to be able to paint. You have to be able to design, right? You don't have to design amazingly. You just have to understand how to like put two and two together, right? After that, you're probably hireable. Now it's like let's get you in front of people. Let's you know, give you opportunities. Let's get people to know you, because that's really the difference, right? It's getting in front of the eyes of the people that actually are hiring, you know? So so let's see here. I am making a space, right? I don't want this other half, so I'm just gonna cut it off for now. I'm deciding if it's gonna be something like that. But right now, I have this design that I'm kind of working with, right? Obviously, this doesn't fully work yet, right? So I'm just kind of planning things out. But what I want to do is I started with the bar that I'm working at, right? I just want to create this understanding of the space, and then we're going to start, you know, kind of piecing this all together, because the whole point is I want this room to make sense around the thing that you're there for, right? A lot of these places, right, they're built around the idea of like, you know, you sitting at a place, sitting at a bar, interacting with this chef, right? And so when I designed this space, I want it to feel that way, right? So I'm just trying to create that, and then we can create the rest of the room around that, right? So let's see. Boom. This is probably too big. That's probably way too small, right? Actually, maybe not. I kind of like, let's see. 2, there it is. So what if like that was the room right there? That'd be weird, huh? Would that be weird? I don't know. Because I like this. Hold up. Hold the phone. This is me like just trying to problem solve. Just being like, what can we do to make this work better? What if like the wall's right there? And then you can like go around the back. And this is where like, you know, if I were to do this, there's always a back of restaurant, right? So I'm trying to figure out like how do we create a sense of how do we create a real space that actually like means something, you know? Let's see. Boom. Oops. So, with that in mind, with Lightbox topics going on, right? It was fun. For those that didn't go, I would highly recommend going, right? I think it does cost a certain amount, right? It costs, you know, coming from Japan, it costs a ton. It's more expensive than you might think. But what I will say is, going to these events, I feel are super important. For those that like, maybe you're a little bit newer to concept art, to like doing things, right? It's very important to go because you get a better sense of who's kind of like getting hired. You know what I mean? Like who's finding work, what bar is kind of out there, right? Like what's the quality bar you're looking for? I think for me, when I was first going to school, I was a first year student at Noman, right? I was supposed to be there for 3 years. Didn't end up happening. We can talk about that later. But I was in my first year, and I wasn't like amazing or anything. But I was like, okay, I'm doing pretty good in my classes, right? I've been getting all A's, right? I'm doing fine, right? And it was obviously I wasn't like cocky where I was like, I'm the best in the world, right? But there is a confidence where it's like, okay, cool. I think I'm getting kind of close, right? Because when you're comparing with the people around you, right, there is a false sense of gain or false sense of, you know, understanding of like kind of where you're at, right? And so when you are a student, you really have to go to these things, because if you don't know what the bar is, right? Unless you're part of like Discords like this one. You know, unless you're like active part of communities, right? And you know people, it's really hard to know what that bar is. So for me, when I first left Noman and started pursuing concept art, right? Like, to be honest, if I knew how far away I was, right, when it came to like, you know, doing doing concept art, right? Like what if I knew the difference in skill level that I was like kind of missing, right? I don't know if I would have pursued concept art, right? Because like, I guess because I was supposed to be a modeler up until a certain point, right? I was like, I'm here to do modeling. I was thinking characters. So I wanted to be a character modeler, right? So I did the thing, and you know, I was at the school to do that, right? And then I was like, well, I think I like concept art more, because the first year at Noman, you're kind of doing the 1 year track, which is all like foundational stuff, drawing, painting, design, and I really enjoyed that, and I was doing well enough to make me believe that I was like good enough to probably do it. You know what I mean? And if I knew where the bar was, I don't know if I would have taken the leap. You know what I'm saying? Because it's disheartening how good some of these students can be. Even my students right now, I'm like, God damn, you guys are insane. Like, I shit you not, most of the people that you see posting like in the Discord, right, in like the final in the finished work section, right? I couldn't even imagine doing that in my first like 3 years of actually working. You know what I mean? Like, it's like doing like shit. Half the stuff is like better than what I'm doing now. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's actually like legit crazy. But like, you need to see where that bar is, because if you don't, it can give you a false sense of confidence, right? And so with these events, for one, obviously we're not trying to like, it's not like a dick measuring competition, right? We're not trying to like, we're not trying to size up, but I am trying to understand like where I'm at in this field. So, because when you're sitting there in line, right, and you're trying to get a portfolio review, you can see the next portfolio, like they're standing right there, right? Like you're at a table, and then the guy in front of you that's getting a portfolio review, right? Chances are you can see what they're showing, or at the very least, you probably talked to them while you guys were waiting in line to see a portfolio review. And oftentimes there's some sort of exchange, and you look at the work, you're like, oh shit, you know what I mean? Like this guy's in front of me. It just makes you want to leave. You know what I mean? You're like, maybe I've made a mistake. You know what I'm saying? Like maybe I'm in the wrong room, essentially. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't say it like that, but like it happens. It feels that way. You know what I mean? And so with these types of events, it really helps you understand where the bar is. And if you don't go, right, oftentimes you can kind of be in the dark. And unfortunately, it happens a lot where there will be like, there'll be like times where someone's like, okay, cool, I have like a couple months left before I need to find a job, and then they'll show me the portfolio. I'm like, you're like 2 or 3 years away from finding work. You know what I'm saying? Like, unfortunately, that ends up being the case, and you want to really kind of know that ahead of time, right? Because it sucks. You know what I mean? It's bad. Finding out that, you've spent 4 years at university or whatever, and then and then realizing that you're not really at the level to kind of compete, right? It can be heartbreaking. It can be very bad. So go to these events, understand what the competition is like, right? Not competition in like a bad way or anything. Just understanding like, hey, this person's this good. Cool. Let me, this is kind of where I need to be. Great. You want to understand that. And then you see like your friends getting hired too. You see like this person's getting hired. Cool. Now I kind of know where the bar is. I understand where I should kind of be. You know what I'm saying? So actually, let's do it this way. That's dumb. I was like modeling that separately. What am I doing? Crazy. Yeah, there were so many times where I'd go to events like that, and I'm like, what am I doing here? You know what I mean? Like, because you'll go with friends that you haven't seen in a while, or go for, like with people from other classes, and you're like, man, this sucks, man. Why am I here? Like this, everybody is so much better, and it's eye opening for sure. I'm trying to get a sense of this room before I fully commit to like this shape. I might need to make it a bit bigger, but let's see.
There's always a bigger fish, man.
Dude, yeah, man. There's always, and it's weird too, because it's like you look at it and you'll be like, wait, how are you not finding work? And I think the tough part, the hardest thing to really like wrap your head around, right, when it comes to these things, is that when you're a student, you're like, cool, I'm in this pool with a bunch of other students, right? It's like art center students, Noman, it's like, Savannah, whoever, right? It's just like every art school and then every university, right? I guess every student understands that, right? You know that you're in the pool with a bunch of other students all trying to fight for the same job, right? And then you realize there's professionals in that pool as well. There's entry-level professionals, there's mid-level professionals, and even in this climate, there's like veterans in that same pool. It's not a different pool, right? It's not a like a, hey, here's the kiddie pool where the students go, and then like 5 years and above, you go to this pool. It's not like that. It's one pool. So you'll be there with like you and your friends, right? You'll be like a bunch of university level students or whatever, and you'll go in line. You're like, yeah, we're gonna do this portfolio review, and then the dude in front of you, he's been working for 5 years, and he's trying to find his next job, right? You'll see somebody that maybe is like 10-year veteran trying to figure out their next studio or whatever, right? And you're like, wait, this is a portfolio review for students, right? No, it's just a portfolio review. This is just a talk for whoever is looking for work. And I think for me that was one of the bigger things to really understand about this. Is like it's not just students that are here. And then when you get that, when you understand that mechanic, for me it was very eye opening. You know, it was like, oh shit, you know, it's actually it's difficult. You know, because now you're competing as a student with people that are like have triple the experience you do. You know what I mean? Let's do 20. That's fine. So that's the scary part. But you know, it is what it is. I have some fun stories. If anybody else wants to talk about some stuff, I definitely I'm all ears. But I do have a very interesting interaction that I had this past week. Or this past not this past week, the week before that at Lightbox. I get so when you're tabling, right, your name is on a thing. You're on a list of people that are tabling for the event, right? So what happens is people look up that list, right? Because they'll look up artists and you submit work and everything. Like you not submit work, you just upload work. It's like a small portfolio database of the artists that are there, and other people like look those things up, right? So I get contacted by an animation studio. I'm not gonna name who because it was a little bit weird, but so I get contacted, and they're like, "Hey, Kenny, we really like your work. We'd like to kind of, we saw that you're gonna be at Lightbox, and we'd love to meet up and just chat, right?" They said we're not really hiring right now, but we're trying to put out a feeler for like who's like kind of they're like looking. They're not actively looking. There's not an empty role, but they're like putting out feelers to kind of get to know people and just do vibe checks essentially, right? And so the understanding that I get is see dude but the understanding that I get is that they called me. I didn't apply to this. I didn't, they messaged me and were like, "Hey, we'd like to chat." And so I'm like, "Cool, sure." I set up the appointment. We have the meeting time and all these things, right? And so there is this. I just kind of I didn't bring anything. You know what I mean? Because you don't bring things to those types of interviews. You know what I'm saying? Like they called me, so they have my work. They've seen what I do, right? So that's the understanding here. I go sit down in this waiting room where you're waiting for the thing, and I'm looking around. I'm like, "Huh, okay, that's a little weird. Maybe I should have brought something." I didn't have my iPad or anything on me. And I get called, and I walk into this room. It's like this curtain, makeshift curtain room, right? It's just like because there's like 10 other people in there. I'm walking in there, and then this recruiter's in front of me, right? Or this person's in front of me. He's not a recruiter. And then I sit down, and I just go, "So, it's just like I walked in, and he's looking at me like I'm applying for something." And I was like, so I just sat down, and because I didn't have anything, I'm literally tabling, right? And then I just walked in, right? And I was like, "So, it was like quiet but extremely loud." You know what I'm saying? Like it was one of those. And I was like, "So is there anything you want to talk about?" It was weird to say the least, right? Just it was weird. Just to really put that out there. And so I think like 3 minutes go by where it's a lot of like, so is basically like, "You gonna show me something?" Right? Like him to me, not not the opposite way around. I was like, and then I literally had to go, "Hey man, you guys called me, so what did you want to talk about?" You know what I mean? Like I was like, "I'm not here for an interview. You contacted me." Because that's not, you know what I mean? That's not how this works, right? If you message somebody, you're the one presenting to me. You're trying to, you know what I'm talking about? Because I'm not applying for a job, right? That's not what's going on here. And so basically we had to be like, oh, he was like, oh, okay. And then we were just like, it was just this weird interaction of like, why are you here essentially? You know what I'm saying? And then I was like, huh, this is really weird. I've never been in a scenario like that. You know, because usually at a interview like this, right? For most of you here, you walk in, you have a portfolio in your hand, you show it, and they review your work, right? In this case, I didn't set up this interview, so I'm not the one that's looking for the job. I'm not the one looking for you're talent scouting at this point. So you should pitch to me as to why I should work at your place, right? That's how that works, generally speaking. And so we got past all that, and essentially I had to stop the conversation of like, you know, like, hey, I didn't apply to this, so if you know there's something you want to talk about, we can. But I mean, I don't, you know, I'm just curious as to why. I literally said like, I'm just curious as to why I'm here. And eventually we kind of like got to the root of the cause. It's like the people that set up the thing don't talk to the people that are talking to the students, type of thing. So he's under the assumption that I'm just like another one of the students, right? And then I was like, okay, cool. So we kind of ended that, and then we just started like just talking. We just started chatting, right? And I was like, oh, this is a great opportunity to ask what these studios are looking for, right? Like it was just a conversation, because that's what they're doing. They're having a vibe check, right? And so I'm talking to them, asking kind of like, you know, hey, you know, what do people kind of look for, or like, what do you guys look for in students, right? Because this just basically became like an interview, so I can just talk about it here today. And it was just a funny interaction, because it was so awkward in the beginning, because there was this weird expectation between both of us, and then eventually I had to like, you know, like almost like force the hand of like, hey, we can't, I'm not, I have a table to run, man, I can't just be here, you know. But eventually we sorted that out, and we got to the understanding that we needed to get to, and we started talking about what places studios are kind of looking for. This specific studio, right, was Lucasfilm Animation. I guess I need to talk about that for what we're about to say, right? It came down to like, we were trying to I was actually trying to figure out like, what do they look for, you know, because every studio is a little bit different, and I kind of want to talk about it here, right? And so it was interesting, because with them, usually at a studio, they want to hire like the kind of the best kind of talent that they can find, essentially, right? And that's not saying that's not the case for them, but it was a little bit different. Actually, it surprised me a little bit. So I was sitting there talking to it was a concept artist. I was talking to an actual concept artist, and this is kind of what they were looking for. And so I was talking to him, and then I asked like, hey, so, you know, some studios are a little bit different. How do you guys hire? And they say they really look for more junior to mid-level concept artists, right? The main reason is because they want somebody that can kind of, I guess, grow with their studio, essentially, you know? Because usually, from all the studios that I've been to, right, it's always been like, we're looking for like senior level artists. Like, for example, the studios that I work at, like recently, even like Netflix and Paramount, right? Both places, it was mostly like more senior level artists, because they move kind of fast. So there's really not that much time to kind of train people, right? Especially for like for what we were doing, it was just like everything was so, I won't say haphazard, but it was just like intense, like the speed in which we were moving, that it's really hard to like sit down and handhold somebody to kind of get them to do the work, essentially, right? Because a lot of juniors, it tends to be a bit slower. You know, you're having to actually like spell things out a bit more, versus senior, you kind of just let them run, right? But it was, for them, it was the exact opposite, right? They want somebody that they can kind of mold and change into the artist that they're looking for, essentially, right? And I found that kind of interesting, because you know, obviously every studio is a little bit different, but I think I I don't you don't see that as much anymore, which I thought was kind of interesting. So when I was we were just talking, I was like, so like I guess when you're hiring, what do you kind of like what do you kind of like look for, right? Like, because every portfolio, there's always this differences, right? There's always like when you talk with some studios, there's two responses that you'll kind of get, right, with your work. There's the studios where they're like, we're looking for somebody with a unique voice. We're looking for somebody that can really like, bring something new to the dynamic. They don't want somebody doing fan art. They want somebody that can, change it up and they'll form you into whatever it is that they're looking for, essentially, right? Because style is, generally speaking, pretty easy to kind of copy, essentially, right? Because it's just whatever. And then the other response is, oh, we need somebody that does work exactly like ours, because there's an established look that that kind of is already there. I think, like, for everybody that I talk, obviously I haven't like worked directly at Riot before, so I can't say this for sure. But a lot of places like Riot and places like Blizzard and stuff like that, they're usually looking for artists that can really like fit the mold already, right? They're like, oh, you kind of already do work like us, so let's we can kind of work with that a bit easier, right? Which I found yeah, obviously that makes sense, right? And yeah, it was a interesting conversation, and he was telling me that they look for artists that can kind of fit the bill a little bit more, right? Like, they're looking for somebody that understands the Star Wars IP. Obviously, they don't want someone like is like 100% like the same, right? But they want somebody that's like, generally speaking, they don't have to like, it's not like 100% like change from that from whatever it is that they're already doing. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you do something that's like radically different, that might be an issue, right? And it was fun having that conversation. And the reason I'm talking about this now is because, like, it's these kind of conversations that is the most important part about going to these types of events, right? If you go to an event like this, right, there's for those that don't know, if you go to like these types of conventions, there's like panels and stuff that you can go to, which are great, right? They're cool. There's definitely some interesting things there that you could probably take a lot from, right? But what I would highly recommend, right? And this is probably like maybe your second go around, right? I think your first go around, do what you need to do, go where you need to go, because it's your first time. Just have fun. You know what I mean? But your second time, I would highly recommend, maybe don't go to all of the panels, right? Maybe just stay on the floor. Maybe just go to some of the events that artists are holding, because it becomes such an impactful like learning experience, especially for me, like, because I'm always wondering like what people are looking for, right? Because I talk with students all the time, right? I'm talking with students right now. You know what I mean? Some of you guys aren't talking back, but it's whatever. But but generally speaking, I interact with a lot of students just in my day to day, and so it's always interesting for me to hear kind of like what people are looking for. What are the kind of like signs that they should be kind of figuring out, because it changes, right? It's different, and as for me, as somebody that's not really looking, right, it's still important for me to know, because I'm in this industry, or this part of the industry that kind of helps inform people that are in more beginner level areas, right? Students and entry level, right? I'm trying to help push that up, those ideas. So when I have these conversations, it's so helpful. And so for those of you that are like trying to break in, trying to get into wherever you need to get into, these conversations is, for me, what is really what Lightbox is all about, right? It's getting to understand what these artists are looking for, especially if you can talk with an actual artist, right? I can't stress that enough. I think one thing that I find very, I don't say irritating, but it is very very annoying when I see it, because it can be very detrimental to a lot of artists, a lot of younger artists, is that like they'll talk to somebody that's supposed to be recruiting for whatever studio, right? And they'll get this crit where it's like, oh, so our studio does a lot of line drawings, and so, you know, we're looking for a lot of line drawings. Do you have any? And then you're like, oh, I want to be a color key artist, or I want to be a background painter or some shit like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's usually not relevant to like whatever it is that you're trying to do. And that happens so often. I don't know how many portfolios reviews I did that weekend, but like I did so many portfolio reviews. And then the common thing that I would hear was like, oh, the recruiter at this place told me this. And I was like, that's really weird. Especially ones that like they were like, oh, hey, I was trying to apply to places. And these are places that I like worked, right? Or places that I either one, worked there, or two, have worked for that place or know someone that works at that place, right? They'd be like, oh, you know, we got this review from this place and they said that I should have these things. And I was like, that's really weird, because that's not what you're trying to do, you know? And they're like, I was like, oh, so who gave you the review? Was it like an artist or something? Or like who, like, you know, well, like what's going on there? And they're like, oh, I think it was like a recruiter or something. And I was like, it's just irritating, because oftentimes, you know, these places or these studios that are like I guess hiring or doing reviews, they just kind of put whoever there, right? And it ends up being just this, I don't know, like this misguided like thing. And they tell these students like, oh, hey, we need this thing, we need that, we need whatever. And then, you know, you have these students do it, and then a year later they come back and it's like, it just messes up their portfolios. You know what I mean? And this is why it's so important, right? For everybody to understand, when you go to these events, talk with actual artists, right? Like actually like go to their table and just ask for a review, right? I told my students this, the ones that showed up and the ones that are around, I said, hey, go interact with some of these artists, right? And just walk up to the table, right? And say, hey, I love your work. Can you look at my portfolio and, you know, give me some suggestions? You know what I mean? Because, you know, you can't, obviously, if they don't give it, that's fine. But I think the understanding is that you should probably realize that every artist there is there to usually help people, right? Because most artists there, I will say, they're not really there to make money, right? Like I was saying earlier, they're not really there to make bank. I'm sure some do, for sure, but generally speaking, you don't really make that much at conventions. So most of them are probably there to kind of interact with students, interact with people, right? And so when you go to their table, right, just be respectful, right? Be chill, and then like talk to them and be like, hey, I really like your work. I'd like to work at places that you work at, or I'd like to work like you, right? Is there anything that you could recommend for me to do to, you know, kind of get better? You know what I mean? And I find that those types of feedbacks tend to help the most, right? Just because it can be so misleading sometimes when you just go to these recruiter events, right? And also understanding that, like, when you go to some of these recruiting events, right, where it's like, hey, you know, I don't know, DreamWorks or whoever is looking at portfolios, you know, bring your stuff and whatever, right? Like, I think for me, maybe I'm just dumb. Who knows, right? Maybe I just misinterpreted these situations. But like, whenever I was a student, I'd go to these things. It kind of, I don't want to say expecting some sort of like result, but like, you're kind of there because you want a job, right? You're kind of like, hey, you know, here's my work. You know, I'd love to like actually find work, right? That'd be great, you know, because that would be ideal, right? That's what you're looking for. But the key to understand is these events don't line up with hiring periods. You know what I'm saying? Like there's an event at the end of October, right? And then the studio has to be there, but sometimes they're not really looking for artists at that time. They already hired, right? Because especially for like animation and various things like that, there's waves, right? There's like cycles where like they're hiring more, they're hiring less, you know, because there's things that happen throughout the year. And so the end of the year, as that gets closer, September, they're usually starting to hire because there's a chunk of work that needs to get done by the end of the year, whether that's to finish off a project that needs, you know, whatever, like something like they have to finish for a deadline, or they need to have a certain amount of work done by that time, right? Usually they've already hired by the time Lightbox or those types of events kind of come around, so it can be very difficult to like actually find an opening. And so when you get to these interviews, I think for me, I was always kind of like, you know, they always do the, wow, your work looks great, you know, let me give you my card, or here, take my, you know, let me take your card and we'll call you this and that. And then it's like, oh yeah, great. And then nothing, you know, because they're not hiring, you know what I mean? It's just, it just didn't line up, you know. It's just, they have you in mind, but that's about it. And I'm not saying that this happens to everybody, you know, but more often than not, you're not really at this event to find a job, right? Like there is this, and I think maybe there needs to be a better communication around this or whatever. But the whole point being is, I find that these places are not really good at kind of conveying that information. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. It's I definitely like, you know, I do feel myself getting a little bit negative about it, right? I kind of these events, but this topic. But I do feel like it is something that everybody really should kind of start being aware of, right? Like just, you know, you want to go to these events with the right mentality, right? You want to go to these things understanding what you're supposed to be getting out of it, you know, how you're supposed to be kind of handling it, because you can kind of go to these things and, you know, not talk to anybody or not interact with anybody and then be like, why am I here? You know, it's a waste of $1,000, a waste of, you know, waste of money, a waste of time, waste of whatever. And it can be kind of disheartening, you know what I mean? So I don't know. Let's see. But yeah, for those of you that are here, I'd love to, like, for anybody that was at Lightbox, was anybody here that was at Lightbox? I'm seeing a couple names. Henry was there. Simon was there. How did you guys feel about it? How was your event? I'm gonna call you guys out.
It was awesome.
Nice. Yeah, Alan. Yeah, you were there too.
I think I recently met Alan. And we met at the brainstorm meetup.
Yeah. Nice.
For Lightbox, at least, I definitely agree with what you were saying. It was nice to see people like see my work, I guess, but I think just being able to just even talk to them, I felt it was like a big thing. Just because I'm kind of like trying to get into it, right? So just like meeting professionals is just, I don't know, I think it was like a step forward in a way.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
That's good.
But yeah.
Nice. Yeah, it's I think what's nice is that, you know, now for me too, right? Like when we meet artists like this, right? Generally speaking, we remember, right? I'm not saying we always remember, right? I mean, I forget all the time too. But what I will say is, you know, I'll see a portfolio. I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah, that work looks good, right? And I mean, generally speaking, for those that kind of met up with me or, you know, talk to me and stuff like that, right? I remember you, even if you didn't take my class, right? Generally, there's like a couple people at Lightbox that like, it's just our yearly meetup. You know what I mean? Like a couple of you, you know who you are, but like, it's just like, we're just catching up. You know what I mean? We're just catching up again for the first time in a while or whatever. and it's nice. I think. But what's cool though is that when I see their work again, you know, whoever it is we're talking about, right? It's I can see the growth. I can see the hard work that's kind of been going on this past year or whatever, and it's nice to kind of see that difference. Because, you know, if I see your work at a studio where like, hey, when we're looking at portfolios or whatever, I'm like, oh, I know that person. Yeah, they say hi to me every year at Lightbox. They're really cool, you know? And it's like, oh, if they're, because assuming your work's good enough, now it's just like, you know, are you cool? Right? Because that's what, it's funny too, because this is exactly what that interview with the animation studio was telling me. He was like, we're not really hiring anybody right now, but what they're doing is they're trying to get a vibe check, right? That way, when they are hiring people and they see your work, they're like, oh yeah, he was cool. You know what I mean? And that's really what it is, right? And we were just chatting, right? We were talking about all sorts of stuff. It got like to a pretty, I felt, I don't know, maybe I killed the mood already, but like, you know, it got to a point to where we were just chatting, we were just having fun, just talking about whatever, right? And we were joking around and doing whatever. But that's the whole point, right? We're just trying to figure out, like, you know, what is this person like? You know, what do they do? What are they kind of like interested in? All these things, and hopefully, you kind of catch a good vibe from them. You know what I'm saying? So. Yeah. So Didi in the chat says, I work with Playground Games on some recruitment based events, and they said a lot of it is about soft skills. That's exactly it, you know, because in a realm where everybody is good, right? Like generally speaking, if you're applying for a job, most people can draw and paint, right? Like obviously, if you're a student, like get good, right? Get better at doing those things. That's your first goal. But this is more for the conversations around the, I guess the kind of like borderline professional people where like your quality's pretty good. You have, generally speaking, all the skills. You can always be better, but you're for whatever reason not finding work, right? It's the soft skills that you have to develop. It's those things, because if you don't develop those, you get some really weird interactions, and it's a little off-putting. You know what I mean? I had more weird interactions than I care to admit at events like this, right? And not even just this past, you know, that past weekend, but like just throughout all my various tabling events. And it is something where, yes, it really can get a little bit weird, right? And I do want to talk about some of that as time goes on, but yeah, it's just like those soft skills are so important, because you have to remember, for everybody, right? I've said this before in like classes and stuff. It's probably been a while since I've said it in a live stream, but like just learning how to talk, just because you have to remember, they have to work with you. You know what I mean? Like they have to interact with you on a daily basis. You know what I mean? Like when you work at a studio, especially if you're in studio, right? This is, you know, more true before where we're all in-house. But like I have to see you 40 plus hours a week. You know what I mean? And like if I have to, like, especially as your lead or even as just a coworker, concept artist, I have to interact with you 40 hours a week. And if you're an asshole or you're kind of weird, it's just like, no offense, but I don't want to do that. Yeah, I'd rather hire the B-level artist that's really nice and really sweet, and you know, it's really cool to work with, than the Omega all-star artist that's just a pain in the ass to work with. And there's so many like that, right? And it's not even like, a lot of times has nothing to do with their like art skills, just personality. It's just like whatever it is, they're just terrible to, like, just as human beings, right? Just not fun to be around. You know what I mean? And that could be kind of terrible. So yeah, soft skills, extremely, and especially as artists, right? We're not soft skills people. You know what I mean? Like we don't not that we don't want to, right? But like a lot of us, you're artists because, you know, like you want to go and hang out in your room and draw, or you know what I'm saying? Like we don't like, you know, like artists is a particular type of people, right? Like there's a stereotype there for a reason, you know what I'm saying? And so like when you're, I guess, learning to be a professional, right? You have to learn how to turn it on. You have to learn how to just be out of that shell for a second. I think for me, I'd rather not talk to people on a day-to-day basis. I just, you know, me, I just rather do my own thing, right? But you have to learn how, because if you don't, you get looked over, you get passed up, you get, you know, just overshadowed by people that are talking more, right? And in an industry where you have to stand out, you have to do something, right? And I'm not saying stand out, be weird and do something loud, right? It's not like that. But it really is like, just be present, be active, show people who you are. Generally speaking, most artists are pretty nice, you know. In the chat, Shao says, this is an old comment, but that surgery concept reminds me of drawings with a Cintiq versus drawing with a screenless tablet. Yeah, it's funny, I draw with a screenless tablet, so it's I definitely know that feeling, because I switched from a screen Cintiq for the past, like I was doing it for the past, like, I think it's been 3 years since I've switched. No, 2 years since I've switched. So I was on a Cintiq for like 8 years, I think. 8 years professionally, not including student time. But yeah, it's I like it. I like it a lot better. It's nice. Anyway, Michelle also says, Kenny, when you are navigating with a camera, how do you do it? Like, it kind of looks different from regular navigation. Okay, cool. So, for those that don't know, right, in Blender, there's a camera that you can like kind of look out of, right? If you're like in a normal screen like this, right? If you're just like kind of hovering around, if you press 0, you can kind of be in the camera view, right? If you zoom in, you'll kind of like get that fuller view. If you click Shift tilde, right? Tilde is that squiggly line thing. Here, hold up. Tilde key. It's that key right there. The one under escape, it's that little like squiggle. That's called a tilde. But anyway, if you click Shift tilde, you can kind of navigate like a first-person shooter. So like the WASD keys, so the arrow keys, right? You can kind of walk around as if you're like in the space, which is actually really nice. If you click, if you scroll forward, if you use your scroll wheel on your mouse, you can speed up or slow down. Like if I scroll all the way down, you see I'm kind of like inching along, but if I kind of scroll up, you'll kind of move around a little bit quicker. So I like using it this way better. I don't really like, you know, kind of like moving it around like that, you know what I mean? Because it can get kind of like weird. And to be honest, I don't even know how to move it that way. You know, I just never did. I just kind of navigate like this, position where I need to go. If you click V, actually, hold up, is it V? I think it's V. Boom, V, no, G. There you go. If you click G, you'll land. You'll actually like, I'm actually walking on the surface. You know what I'm saying? Like if I actually fall off, check this out. Whoop, you can actually like fall off. So, but yeah, that's what that is. I like doing it this way because it helps to actually visualize the space. If you played a lot of like, you know, computer games and stuff like that, you're used to navigating like this. And I think for me, I played a lot of Counter-Strike growing up, so this is like exactly what this is. It's the exact keys you would use, right? And you can like, you know, strive back and forth, and then you can like go up. You can like just kind of crane up, or you could kind of crane down, right? With the Q and E keys, E goes up, Q goes down, W goes forward, S goes backwards, and then A goes left, D goes right, right? So you press G, and then you just walk around. Like I'm in this restaurant now, dude. You know what I mean? Like that's crazy. And you can like walk on top of things. Like that's kind of fun. Anyway, I like using it as a way to navigate. I don't use the gravity one so much, just because I just don't. I don't really need it that much, but yeah. So that's what that is. Darren says if you go to view, hold on, let's see if Darren's lying or not. Wait, hold up. Where's my view? View. Navigation.
Top left.
Top left. View. Oh, here we go. View. Navigation. And then walk navigation. There you go. There you go. That's the long way to get there. So, but yeah, shift tilde gets you there quicker. So, thanks, Darren. It's funny. It's funny. A lot of short keys that because I learned Blender from a friend of mine, and when he taught it to me, or at least the basics, it was just like we're just kind of learning. Like he's just like, hey, just click this. I was like, cool, sure. And then like oftentimes I don't actually know how to get to certain things the long way anymore because I'm just like I never did it. You know, he just said, oh yeah, if you click shift tilde, you'll get there. I'm like, okay, cool. But yeah, that's how you do that.
I think you could also use tab to land.
Tab? Hold up. All right, I'm walking around. I'm gonna go up. Click tab. Bro, what's up? There you go.
I did that on accident when I was like moving around.
Nice. There
I was
you
like,
go.
wait, am I like walking right now?
And you can jump off. Like, dude, what? There you go. But yeah, cool ways to navigate. So let's see here. This is actually working out. So just a quick breakdown of what's going on here, right? So I have this space, and I want to make this rule because what I like is a lot of these omakase places, right? They're small. They're like, it's literally like the front door and then like 3 walls and a table. You know what I mean? Because you don't go anywhere. There's like a restroom area you can walk into and stuff like that. And I want to kind of create a space where, you know, you have the interactions, but then I like the back of the house, right? And that's kind of, I'm gonna get rid of this stuff here, right? We'll do that in a second, but I like seeing like the kind of kitchen area. So I want to try and figure that out and create a cool, interesting space that way, right? Because I don't want it to just be the kind of like table here, because that's boring, right? That sucks. Oops, sorry. Because I want to sit here, right? Like I want to sit down. I want the camera to be something like this, right? And then you can see the opening in the back, and then I want to see like things happening, right? I want this to be a not so high-end place, right? Because so something about these types of restaurants, right, is that the whole point is this interaction between like the chef and the person, right? You're getting a one-to-one experience. They're serving you directly, right? It's not like they make it in the kitchen and then the waiter takes it out kind of restaurant, right? It doesn't roll like that. And so when I make this space, I'm really cognizant of that experience. But like we talked about earlier, right? I'm creating this Bluetooth experience where they're wiring in from wherever. Maybe he's actually in Japan and this is like in some place in, I don't know, Idaho or whatever, right? And you're kind of having this authentic, quote unquote, authentic experience with somebody that's not there, right? But the understanding of this space, right? The understanding of the real life experience, it's very personal. And I don't know for sure. I guarantee you, I can almost guarantee you that the people that would be able to do this would be highly against it, right? Just because that's not the kind of experience they want to bring. It's more personal than that. It's not just about the food. It's about, you know, the interactions, right? And if you're through a screen, you don't get that same level of interaction. And so it's very not personal, right? And so now it turns into basically kind of like this, I don't want to say a money grab, but like there's a commercialization of this thing. So I want it to not be as nice as some of these places that we're talking about here, right? Because it's very personal, right? These types of events, it's not just the food, it's the experience they give you. And so when you turn it into something more commercial, like it's like a bunch of robots kind of there, right? It creates that experience of like, you know, what this place kind of is. And so when I design the space, I don't want it to be something that's very like curated and very like, I don't want to say purposeful, but very intimate, right? With some of these with some of these chefs, right? Because it's missing that level already. So this is kind of where I want you to think about whenever you're creating your interiors, right? What we're doing is we're trying to create an experience for whoever's entering this room, right? And you have to understand what the room's about. When you create like a bedroom, right? Everybody's room is a little bit different, right? Everybody has their likes, has their dislikes. You know, they has their way of organizing things or not organizing things, right? And so there's an understanding of the room, right? Because when you go into a little kid's room, probably toys everywhere, right? You go into a minimalist room, it's like just a bed, right? And it's because that's what they do, right? That's what they're prioritizing. And so when you design your space, you want to understand the mindset of the people that run this, right? And this is where I want to get to with this, where if you were to create a restaurant with robots, right, in a place that that's very impersonal, you know what I mean? It kind of sucks the life out of like that idea, right? This isn't a romanticization of robots. This is very much like a dystopian kind of feel. Like that's actually something that I saw from, was it this one? I think it was this one. Yeah, it feels very like the one problem that I have, not problem that I have, one complaint that I have a lot of times with like high-end restaurants is that like it feels too sterile sometimes. You know what I'm saying? Like if you ever go, I'm not saying I go like every day or anything, but when I am fortunate enough to go to some of these places, right, it feels very sterile and cold, right? And it feels very like, not that this place is like that, right? But it gave me the idea, right? But it feels very like, I don't know, just not like a place like this, right? It just feels so like, I don't know, devoid of life. You know what I'm saying? Like it's hard to explain it, but it's too perfect, right? It's just something about it. And so what I wanted to do when I saw that, I was like, oh, cool. You know, let's try to incorporate some of that understanding, because I really don't like those types of places. Like when I go to a restaurant or something here in Japan, right? I'm looking for like hole in the wall places, looking for more casual places, because there's places here. It's funny. I was talking to my partner about this. Like, there's this bakery nearby. Is it a bakery? It's like a cake place, like a small like cake thing, right? Anyway, we go in there, and like everything, it's like marble, and it's like super nice, and like the bakers and the pastry chefs and stuff like that, they're all like perfect looking, and there's like not a speck of dust anywhere. And I'm just trying to buy some sweets, man. You know what I mean? Like I'm just trying to, and it feels so. There's a system to it all. You know what I mean? Like there's like when you walk in, especially because I'm a foreigner, like I don't quite understand some of these things. Is when I go into the places for the first time, I kind of just like you feel kind of like a fish out of water, essentially, right? And so like when I go into these places, they're lost, right? They're like, what is this person doing here, right? They're clearly not observing some of the rules that we kind of uphold and this and that, right? Not that I'm not like lashing out at the place or anything. I'm just saying, like, you know, it just feels a little awkward sometimes, right? You know, like when you, for those, I guess I don't want to like call out your financial status, but you know, for most students, right, you're generally in the lower income bracket, right? Like lower to no income bracket. So when you go to a place like a Louis Vuitton store, or like you go to like, you know, places that are like super high, like a Rolex store, right? When you walk in, there's a difference, right? It's like they look at you, they're like, what is he doing here? You know, what are they doing here, right? If you go to like an Aston Martin dealership, they're like as a teenager, they're like, what are they doing here? You know what I mean? Because they know you don't belong, right? And it kind of feels that way sometimes. But anyway, so these places are like very devoid of life, very like really kind of rigid and kind of weird, you know? And I wanted to create a space that kind of like, I don't know, kind of like says something about that. You know what I'm saying? And so when I'm designing my space, I'm trying to create a more commercialized version of that. And it's supposed to be a kind of a darker take on that. Not that it's going to be like dark, right? It's not going to be like scary or anything. It's just like that's not what this is about type of thing. You know what I'm saying? So that's the kind of idea. We'll see how that goes. We'll look back on this in 5 weeks time and be like, he totally didn't nail that at all, but we'll see how that goes. But yeah, so just as a heads up, right? I have kind of the layout. Sorry. I kind of have the layout of what I'm going for. I have the main idea, right? Which is, you walk in, like there's gonna be doors or something right here, right? You're gonna kind of walk in, you see the tables, and you go sit down. Because that's usually, as far as the interactions go, in a place like this, right? But then I do want to see some things that are happening in this kind of back area, right? I'm gonna get rid of some of this stuff as we kind of go. Some of the, let's just do this. What is happening here? Nope. Hold up. Select box. There you go. There you go. Sorry. I'm gonna get rid of some of this back hexagonal feeling here, and then we'll kind of go from there. So, cool. Let's see. Boom. Did I have? Sorry, I had some topics I wanted to talk about. Oh yeah, weird interactions. So, just talking about Lightbox again. What I will say for everybody, right? There is things that you should not do when you go to places like this. Obviously, I don't want to call anybody out, right? My students did fine. Sorry, hold on. Let's let this plane pass. All right, so sorry about that. Just plane went by. But none of my students did this, so you don't have to worry. But I did have some interactions where it was a little bit weird. I was like, you probably shouldn't do that, right? And so for everybody, when you, I guess, when you interact at places like Lightbox, right? What I will say is understand that, we are there to help, right? We're there to, kind of get you, get you some feedback and help you kind of understand industry things just, 10, 20% more, right? But don't network. I don't want to say it, because yes, I've been saying the whole time, right? Like a version of networking, right? Where it's get to know people, kind of meet them, this and that, right? I know what I'm saying. I understand what I'm saying is, it sounds like, well, if you don't want us to network, then why are you telling us to go meet people, right? Right? I understand that. There is a difference between just meeting somebody and trying to network, right? There's can I pick your brain? I know why you're there, right? I know, I understand. Just don't approach it that way. You know what I mean? Just be cool. Just be like, hey, I like your work. I really, I kind of want to do the things that you're doing, but don't go up to professionals and I guess assume because they are professionals that they should give you a portfolio review, right? I did have some interactions where it was I'd be talking to a friend or something, and a friend like industry friend, because there's people that just show up to my table sometimes, right? And they'll just be walking around. And I'll say hi, and then there was this one interaction where I was like, oh yeah, this is my friend whoever, and then I was like, oh, they work at this place, and then you kind of see this, I don't know, there's this click, there's this difference, right? Because I'll be talking to somebody, right, a student or whoever, and then my friend would pop up, and I was like, hey, because they're trying to move on, so I just say hi real quick. We were just catching up for a second, and then we move on, and then there's this oh, they're professionals. Let me say hi, and you'll see the other person kind of try to jump in and interrupt conversations and be shoving a portfolio in their face, you know what I mean? And it's very much don't do that. Don't. And and read the room, right? Understand that sometimes they're just walking the floor, right? Because people at tables, right? Something I do highly disagree with. I was hearing some people like complaining that they were doing like a lot of portfolio reviews at their table or whatever. I disagree with that. If you don't want to do a portfolio review, don't fucking table. Don't be at a convention, entertainment design convention with a bunch of students. Like, just you're an idiot. Don't go, right? Because that's dumb. Just at the end of the day, if you're not trying to actually help students or try to talk, there's no point in you being there. So just don't go, right? And you can clip this, you can send this to whoever. I don't care. But when they're walking the floor, right? You don't really want to interact like that, because it's just very off-putting, and it's very much like you don't want to talk to them because you want to know them. You want to talk to them because they have the title professional. You know what I'm saying? And it feels very gross. So just know that, right? Like when you're trying to interact with people at these types of places, just remember that you want to be just a normal human being, right? You want to be somebody that is approachable, somebody that is at least kind of fun to talk to some degree, you know what I'm saying? But don't go to these things like and be networky, you know what I'm saying? Like, leave that shit on LinkedIn. Even then, those on LinkedIn, like, that doesn't work. Just don't do it, Like, I get messages all the time where it's like, oh yeah, do you want to be a connection? Sure, I guess. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, but I don't know you. I don't interact with you ever. We don't talk. It's just like, what am I supposed to do with this? You know what I mean? And so it's just it feels very fake, and people know what fake is, right? I think that conversation that we always have with art, where it's like, because we see things every day, you know what I mean? Like, because we understand what a face looks like, we understand what perspective looks like, all these things. And so, like, what happens is, what a face is supposed to look like, even if you can't draw it. You'll see it, you're like, okay, that's like 10 degrees off, right? It's like, it looks more like whatever, right? The eyes are too far apart. You feel it. You might not know why, but you feel it's off, right? Same thing with conversations, right? Same thing with interactions like that in, public places, right? People know. People understand. People, like, it just feels gross, right? Especially if the only reason you really want to talk is just because we work somewhere. You know what I'm saying? It's very gross. And you can sense it a mile away, just don't do that. It's bad. It's bad. It doesn't reflect very well on you, as an individual. So I think the best thing you can do is just be genuine, right? Be somebody that's like interested in talking with people. And this happens a lot. I think like, this happens, it's funny. This happens with professionals, I feel, more often than students. I think it's funny because as somebody that's like working somewhere, right? I'll have these weird interactions because I'll be hanging out with friends, I'll be chatting, doing whatever, right? Just existing, right? Just being in a place. And then I'll just be hanging out with a friend, or I'll go catch up, and they'll be with their friend or something, right? And I get this shit. It's so weird because I'll interact with some professionals that maybe have like one or two titles under them, right? Where they're like, oh, I worked on, this game, this thing, this whatever, right? And like, you can feel it. You know what I mean? There's something about it, because like, I'll walk up and I'll go, hi, my name's Kenny, just because you're standing there, my friend's here, so we said hi, and I'll reach my hand out, and there's like this like weird, and it's always like professionals that have kind of interact like that. It's always professionals that have maybe like 1 to like 5 years experience, right? 1 to 3, even just more earlier professionals, and like, they won't know who I am because you don't need to know who I am. I'm not important. But you know, I just say, hi, my name's Kenny, right? And they have this weird, like, kind of off-putting, like, yeah, sure, you know, I'll shake your hand, right? And then all of a sudden, my friend, whoever's there, would be like, oh, yeah, so how's Netflix? Or how's this? How's that? You know, we're just talking. And you see their face light up. And they're like, wait, what? You work where? You did what? You know? And it's so like, and at that point, I don't want to say it like this, but you're already dead to me. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not trying to interact with you, right? Because you already get that vibe. You know what I mean? You already kind of know what this person's about. And it's very like, it's very gross. And it's so weird because it happens with like my interactions like that have always been with professionals, not students. You know, it's always like, I guess it's like, oh, I worked here, so, you know, you should know who I am kind of thing. And it's like, why are you like that? You know what I'm saying? And it's very like weird that way. Because I think for me, and my interactions with students have, generally speaking, been pretty nice, right? They're usually, I guess, it may be because I'm, you know, maybe because I work or I do things or whatever. Maybe I'm just a little less observant to it. But like, there's always this like, I don't know, this like, there's more excitement, right? But then when I talk with like some professionals, some earlier professionals, it's always like that. And it's always so like, why are you like this, man? Like, why are you, there's like this understanding that everybody should kind of know who they are type of thing. And it's very like, don't do that. It's very gross. And people know, people just, they don't, I don't think, and it's funny because I'll have interactions with like legendary artists, right? Where I'm like, they're people that like, they're amazing, right? They're like some of the best artists in the world. And every single time, they are always the nicest people you'll ever meet. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's crazy because it's like, I'll have interactions with some of these people, and it's just like, why are you so nice? They're like, you know what I mean? They're like weirdly nice, and it's like legit inspiring. You know what I mean? But then I'll have some interactions with like these, like a person that has like one title with them. You know what I mean? And I'm like, why are you like this, man? Like, why are you so weird? Why are you acting like this? And you just know, you know. So I don't want to complain or anything, but you know, it is funny, these like weird interactions you'll get, especially at like, because I think like these types of events can be very ego driven. You know what I mean? It can be very like, especially like when you finally kind of first get your first like foot in the door type of thing, you know. But it's very very odd. And for everybody here, don't do that, because that's like the fastest way to like just not get anybody to like you. But anyway. David says, I understand what you mean, Kenny. I get iffy on approaching industry people because I don't want to come across as wanting something from... Yeah. There's always this, like... There's this energy that it's like... I guess, I don't know. Maybe they feel like there's, like, people always want something from them. So they kind of, like, come off with that energy. You know what I mean? But it's just like, nobody wants anything from you, man. You know? It's just be a person. And it's funny because, like, one of the best things you can do as an artist, right, or as an individual that, you know, is trying to like find work, right, is just be cool. Because trust me, like, I will hire you over fucking any one of those artists. I don't care how good at whatever it is I don't care what titles they have. If you're cool, I'm gonna hire you in a heartbeat. Just because if you can do the work, right, like, assuming both of you can do the work, now it comes down to, are you actually like cool to interact with? Are you like a decent person? You know what I mean? And that's everything, right? I find that the interactions I have with some industry professionals, I'm like, I'll never hire you. You're just something wrong with you, man. It's just like it's like when like 1 ounce of power kind of gets them, you know what I mean? It's just like, it's so weird, but yeah, sorry. I don't want to complain too much, but it is an interesting scenario to be in. So, all right, we're going all right. We're doing good. So something before we kind of dip out, right? Something I want to point out for everybody, like kind of doing your interiors. Oopsies, sorry about that. What just happened? There it is. For everybody kind of doing your interiors, doing your designs and stuff, right? Remember, when you design the space, know what the intention is, right? Like, so for example, when I go to these places, right? I've only been to a couple, but when you go to them, there's a general understanding that needs to happen. Usually when you walk right into the door, you'll maybe kind of walk across like a wall. That's actually a good idea. I actually kind of like that. Hold up. Boom. There's always like, I'm thinking back to my experience. There's always like something, right? It's like, oops, let's go like that. Boom. Line that up straight. Cool. There's always like something like this, right? Boom. Scale Y. Set origin geometry. Scale Y. Pop. There you go. So there's always like some sort of wall. There's some sort of counter space in the front. You walk through the door, right? Because it's kind of like walled off. There's like a bit of privacy. It's a room, right? And so you walk through the room. Here, let's walk. Let's roll, boys. So you walk into the room, right? And then there's like, you see the space, and then boom, there you go, right? And so there's a reason for those things, right? Like I said, what they try to do is they're trying to create this interaction. They're trying to create this experience for their customers, right? The reason why there's not 100 people in the space is because they can't give that amount of attention to those amount of people, right? It's limited in the amount of space because they want it's the experience, right? If you ever go to these places, yes, the food is good. The focus oftentimes is how you're experiencing the entire event, not just the meal itself, right? And so creating a room, understand why that exists, right? And then the next level of that, once you went to designing the room, right? I want to design with the intention of trying to commercialify that experience, right? If, let's say, like a greedy company got their hands on some sort of robot system that they could do this with, right? What would that look like? I mean, what does that greed kind of translate into? Maybe the robot has like sponsorship tags on it or something. You know what I'm saying? Like that'd be kind of gross, right? But that's the kind of experience I'm trying to build. So it's not just like this place that we're kind of eating at. It's an entire experience, right? So I designed the room with that intention. So whenever you design your room, right, just think about why that room exists, right? Who occupies it? Who owns it? Who lives there? Who works there? Whatever. And then think about the personalities that would kind of, do something like that, right? So for example, if I had a company kind of like, oh, hey, how do we commercialify that? How do we make this experience like make money essentially, right? And we can hire chefs from around the world and, this and that or whatever. And then like, they'd probably be missing a couple things. They'd probably be missing like the kind of interactions that this restaurant would generally have. There'd be things about it that would feel kind of off. You know what I'm saying? And so when I'm designing this place, I'm trying to keep that in mind. I'm trying to create a space that makes sense for the layout that I'm trying to go for, or the kind of, in this case, a business that I'm trying to make, right? And then I'm designing around that, right? I have a camera in my shot, right? I haven't like fully positioned it yet. I want it to be something like a little bit closer, or something like here-ish. That way I can get a nice kind of background shot where there's like the window in the back where you can kind of see the stuff happening. And maybe it's like doesn't look so great, you know what I'm saying? Maybe they're like killing fish and stuff back there. Obviously I know this happens at real restaurants, but you don't want to show the customer that, right? But they would obviously, like a business might miss that, you know what I mean? They might just be like, who cares? You know what I'm saying? But that's just an idea for now. We're thinking about the main experience for this space, right? When you lay out your space, understand what it's about. We'll get into the details on like certain things. I'm actually gonna like dive into, I don't say every prop, at least the main ones, at least the robot, the counter space, and then some of that back area. I'm probably gonna block that out in sometime this week, and then we'll kind of make something happen there, right? but understand that this is how I built the space. I was just kind of experimenting. I made some shapes that I thought were kind of fun, and I'm experimenting and creating something that hopefully turns into something kind of cool. So Finn Down says, I had a conversation with Craig Mullins at Lightbox, and he was the most chill, humble guy. Yeah, right? It's the people at the top, right, that are always like so humble and so chill. Like every time I have, like, there was I'm not going to name who, but there were some people that stopped by my table, and I was like, they were like, dude, love the work, been a huge fan. I was like, what? Like, I'm your fan, man. I can't, there's no, like, you can't be my fan because it doesn't work that way. You know what I'm saying? And it's very odd. But yeah, when you meet those, like artists, generally speaking, they're always so genuine. They're always so, like, they're very nice people. More often than not, especially because people that work in this industry, right? I've often found that the nicer people go further, right? Obviously, that's not always the case. I get that, right? But most people, right, because you're nice and you do really good work, you get thought of and you get hired on for the next job, right? Hopefully that's how that's supposed to work. But generally speaking, I've noticed that being the case a lot, and there's just no room for assholes, because at the end of the day, right, if you're an asshole and you work at a place, right, you'll get your first job. I guarantee that, because all you got to do is be good, right? Like, you can hide being an asshole for a job interview, but you can't hide it for the duration of a job. And now you're working at a team. Let's say on average there's like 10 people, right? Like 5 concept artists, maybe, you know what I mean? Art director, production designer, your coordinators, right? Whoever, right? There's like 10 people that interact with you on a normal day-to-day basis. Now, that project's done. Everyone splits off and does their own thing, right? Not everybody goes to different studios, but generally speaking, right, there's at least 10 different people that know not to hire you, right? And this is why people that are maybe not so cordial with others, or maybe people that are like just not nice people, tend to not get hired a lot of places like that, just because that's what happens. You know what I mean? You have 10 different people saying don't hire that guy, he was a pain in the ass to work with, and that's what it is. That's the reality of the situation that we occupy. So just be nice. It doesn't really take much effort to be nice to somebody, and being nice doesn't mean like going out of their way to do something for them. It just means just be chill when someone's talking to you. Just be cool, be helpful, right? Don't be one of those people that is like, oh, that's my secret, I can't, like, hey, how'd you do that? How'd you do that layer trick? Oh, sorry, that's my advantage over you. That's my that's how I maintain work. I can't really talk about it, right? Because that's gross. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the whole, like, obviously we're not doing that. You're just watching my whole process. But yeah, there's there's a lot of people that do stuff like that, which is really weird. It's really odd. Anyway, cool. We're starting off November strong. We're getting a lot of complaints in. We're we're doing it. We're doing it right. This is if I'm not complaining about something, it's not a live stream, right? You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying. Let's see. Oopsies. Boom. All right. So we got a block out, baby, with 4 minutes over, but we got something, right? And so now what I'm probably going to do, I'm going to go a little bit further with this. And I'll explain all this a little bit later. I left the roof off. Generally speaking, I'll add that later, but right now you won't get any lighting in there, so it's just hard to see. But I have the walls, right? Just kind of remember that. I'm setting up my space, just get a general vibe. Make sure that my shot looks okay, right? Because if I do something, if I kind of like sit down like right here, right, I might want something that's a little bit like kind of like this, so I can see the robots a bit more. Like, there's gonna be 3 robots kind of like occupying this space. There's gonna be a kitchen in the back, maybe more robots. and then I have the Noren here, and then I have like the kitchen thing, I have the counter, you know what I mean? There's a whole setup here. And you want to make sure that this setup works for what you're trying to do, right? You want to make sure that you understand what the layout is and that the shot that you're imagining actually works out. Oftentimes we can build a shot that it doesn't it might look cool, but it's really hard to get a good shot out of it, right? And just know that, especially for animation, when we design our spaces, we're designing it for a shot, right? There's usually an idea that the director has. It's like, oh yeah, they're sitting at the counter and they're looking, towards the chef or whatever, right? And you want to kind of design the shot. Not that it doesn't matter, right? But generally speaking, it doesn't really matter what's back here as much, right? We can figure that out later because we're only going to be looking this way. This side doesn't matter as much, right? Obviously, we still need to design it, but we want to start with the first shot, right? Which is generally speaking, the kind of main shot. And as long as everything that we have, everything that we need is in this shot, we'll probably make something pretty okay, right? But for now, right, this is, we're, kind of going, we're doing all right. So, cool. This week, right, is just kind of talking about blockouts. Next week, we're going to kind of dive down into a more specific kind of prop. I'll probably be doing the robot / the counter area, really filling that space out, designing as much as I can, kind of pushing some of the ideas that are happening here. We'll talk about that next week and how to bring life into this space. Right now, I just want to make sure my camera looks good and the main shapes that I'm doing look, kind of okay, right? So, cool. That's all I got. Just a quick review for everybody, right? We have 4 more, right, after today, right? Today's done, right? We have 4 more weeks left of this stream. There's going to be a Thanksgiving break right here in between weeks 3 and 4. So there's a 1 week gap there. And then stream 5 is just going to be kind of a presentation, talking about things, chatting. Maybe I'll have some people kind of talk about some stuff. I haven't really decided yet. So we'll see how that goes. But for now, if you'd like to participate, right, please join the live stream. Plus, if you go into the server shop, you can join that role. And then every on the West Coast, or on the people in the United States type of area, it happens on Tuesdays, and then streams on Wednesdays. For those in my part of the world right now, it's Wednesdays and Thursdays. But you'll see that whenever you get into that group. So cool, yeah. This last design stream for the year, right? Just a quick update, right, for those that showed up late. This is kind of where that painting got to. I'll post it. I'll post it in the demo stuff like I usually do after this session. So, but yeah, it turned out okay. For my maybe like my first or second creature, it's not bad. There's some things I want to work on, right? I want to do more of these just to kind of like get bring my skills up a little bit higher. That's a big gap in my skills, just like creature and character design. So I can do it, but like it's not where I want it. There's a difference in fidelity that I'm kind of missing, that I feel like I'm missing. But maybe, I don't know, maybe you guys feel differently. So cool. All right, guys, that's all I got. I'll see you next week. Looking forward to doing some interior designs with you guys. So, later.